Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be repairing a James. I'm just going to pour some liquid into this car. So, for anyone wondering why I'm repairing a James, I sell these on eBay. So I repair them, service them, whatever, sell them. So if you ever see any motorized trains on my store on eBay, know this is somewhat of the process I go through. At least some of the steps. So, first thing is tools that you'll need, and it'll depend a lot on the era of train you're working on. This is a James, I believe, from the mid-2000s. Let's have a look at the coal cover. Coal cover says 05, so this could be an 05, could be whatever, really. It's hard to tell with these. All I know is it's not a painted face. So, we'll start with a bit of a visual inspection. Overall, the tin is not in the worst nick. The stickers are a little bit all over the place, but nothing too bad. There is a nasty crack in the side of his roof. And this side's not looking too good either. This is common on James's. That is going to be a pain in the ass to get that traction tire off. And there are no wires. So this will be a bit of a few-step process. If you were a bit eagle-eyed, you would have noticed this. This is a more intact James. The face is probably about as bad, but I'm going to basically replace this component once I clean it up a tiny bit. Replace this entire piece. Replace this piece with this piece. So let's begin. Now I might cut this video a little bit, pause it, and you might see some jump cuts, just to make it simple, because I've got to kind of figure this out. I've got to kind of like position the camera, and it's all very annoying. So I'll start by removing these screws. There we go. If they're a bit hard to remove, just be careful with them. You want to emphasize being gentle with screws, because they're only going into plastic. You got to be careful not to strip them, etc. Sometimes they will bind a little bit because they've been sort of welded into the plastic by this point, just through years of non-movement. Weld's probably the wrong term, but I don't know the professional term for these things. So now, when you're disassembling this, remember to keep these screws to the side. These are longer than the screws that go into the engine. So these should be put to the side. Now if you've got intact wires, be careful at this step. I do not, so I'm just going to remove this. Quick inspection, scrub, nothing too major. I'm also just looking for any damage. Wheel sets. They look pretty alright. And then we can remove the James. So, take that tape off. What we have now is basically access to the cables, or the wiring. So before we continue, I am actually going to plug in this soldering iron. So, if you do attempt this at home, please be careful. Soldering irons are quite hot. So, also do it in well-ventilated space, etc. I'm breaking a lot of rules right now, so please don't do it like I'm doing it. For various safety reasons. Now, this next step you want to be really careful. Now, while the soldering iron is heating up a bit. It is so easy to burn the plastic or burn holes through it. So you gotta be really careful with that. It's not warm yet. While we're doing that, I may as well get this started. So what you want to do is you want to remove these 3 screws first. Okay, you'll note that these are smaller than the other ones I mentioned before. So do keep that in mind. Once those are removed, you can then remove the entire, well, sorry, not the entire, you can remove, you can sort of get the chassis to this point. I might be a mistake. I thought you thought you could remove it without having to take this central screw out, but I think I might be getting confused. So take that out as well. Okay, I just dropped every single screw. Again, put them to the side. Central piece. Wheel set. Then we want to remove... Sometimes this will come out, other times you got to remove this other screw, which you want to remove anyway. And now, with that, it should all come apart. And I didn't realize looking at this guy that it also had a cracked rail there. There's going to be two of them. So that is really quite broken. Alright, now that's removed, we can remove the engine. And that's broken too. A lot of broken parts here. Alright, I'm going to pause the video now. I'll be back in a minute. When I come back, I will have a new one of these. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, smooth cut there. So, one thing you might want to consider when repairing these is the overall condition of an item. What do I mean by that? Well, I had a few of these in very good condition. But the face on this James is yellow, the body's not necessarily in the greatest condition. Therefore, I opted for one that was a little bit more worn. Not damaged, just worn. You want to have sort of comparable condition. There's no point putting amazing components on an item that's not amazing. You want to have the item basically look correct. Not that you're trying to hide that you're sort of fixing this up. It's more the fact that you're just trying to make it look cohesive. And it just makes less sense to use good parts on items that aren't deserving of it. Say this piece was broken on an item that was otherwise near mint. Yeah. And what the fuck have they done to this engine? Holy shit. Okay. Alright, let's take this apart. I think someone's been in here before. Because this looks a bit fucked in here. Clean that up a bit. Doesn't need to be perfect. This is, after all, fairly intense wear. So that can go to the side. Alright, before we take the rest of this motor apart, let's take this apart. There we go. Oh, gentle, gentle. There we go. You want to be gentle. Again, not to melt the plastic too much. And I'd also recommend removing the wires this way and not through just ripping them off, just because it's easier to get rid of that excess metal when you've just desoldered it. So they are basically toast. I do have replacements. I'll show you these. They're from a company called Duratec, and they are the right size. The main thing you're trying to look for, these are from a place called J-Car in Australia, but if you don't have that, you've got to sort of look around. So I'll just remove some of it for you. I'll just remove the whole wire loom. Hold up. And we are back. Sorry about that delay. Here's the wire. So I'll just pull off a little bit of the blue. As you can see, comparing this blue cable here, if it'll focus, to this one here, slightly darker in color, but they are basically the same gauge. I really lucked out with this wire, actually, that it is basically perfect. So we won't rewire anything yet. I'll show you my method for that shortly. Next up, I want to remove this traction tire. So you want to remove the wheel sets from the coupling rods, put them to the side. Now I have a tool like this. I know Custom Trackmaster uses a fork. I use this. It's going to be kind of gentle as to not bend the or damage the wheel too much. Sometimes it is unavoidable, but it is around an area that matters very little. But this works very well. You see, they removed really easily, and I've gotten pretty good at it now. So then you want to remove the traction tyre. Now, the Australian climate likes to do fucking stupid things to these things. That is, just basically fuck them up. So, this is pretty much melted on. You just have to chisel it off. Now. Okay. Alright. Alright, so that's the bulk of the tyre. So I made a good start. Now let's have a quick evaluation of the wheel set. Should have done that first. Make sure the gear isn't cracked, which it is not. Now the fun part. Chiseling off the excess. And this is fun. I'll cut the video here and I'll get back to you once I finish cleaning this. Alright, we're back. Hopefully I didn't cut that too quickly. You might hear a bit of a cut off in my voice. But the wheel set is looking a hell of a lot better now. So let's put on some new tyres. Honestly, if you're repairing these, selling these or whatever, my high recommendation is that even if you're not going to pull them apart and service them, which I highly recommend for various reasons. Honestly, servicing them is pretty much essential if you don't want to have people come back to you angry because they stopped working straight away. But if you're not going to do that, and I understand it takes a lot of time, at the very least, replace your tyres and check your wheel sets. Because if the wheel set's shut, you're basically running on borrowed time. Make sure it's cleaned out of any debris. That looks pretty good. Okay, we can put that to the side now. Now is to focus on the motor. This is actually fairly fucked. It shouldn't look at all like this before it's unscrewed. So let's get this undone. I also suspect someone's been in here because there isn't usually a screw there. Usually you only have 3 screws with these motors. So I suspect someone's put another one in. And has rather badly fucked it up when they put it back together. Alright. So that's that. There's all the screws falling out. This, usually, is hardwired in. But it's not, which is not necessarily great. Although, honestly, I don't usually hardwire them in. It's more so if you're taking it apart and it's not hardwired in. It's either an indication they didn't do it, which, to be fair, they didn't do it sometimes. Or it's been opened before, which, considering the state of the motor, I think is what's happened here. So, once you've taken it apart, you can basically split it into a few base components. And we'll focus on all these ones shortly. Remember to keep the spring safe, though. So we'll start off with the main thing, which is the motor. Okay. Does it spin? Yeah, spins relatively freely. Is this intact? Yes, it is. So, if this gear is intact, you don't actually have to replace it. I will, because I always replace these gears. Just because it's easier than reusing them, because you got to kind of slip them back on. Now, with that, we can grab this. And this is a step I do, but I'm not sure a lot of other people do. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it with this, pull this. What we're basically going to do here, what I'm going to do is just try to heat up the old solder a bit. And just remove this leg. Okay, job done. Otherwise you won't be able to get the cap off, which I'm just going to quickly get off screen. You basically need to clip it up like this. Sorry, you need to flick these tabs up like this, but it's easier if I do it off screen. Okay, done. The reason why it's easier to do it off screen is you sort of want to do it on the corner of a desk so you can get proper leverage, because this needs to obviously go down a fair bit. Now let's open her up and have a look. So when you open up a can motor, what you're struck with is three components. You have the can itself, the shaft with the magnets attached to it, and then you have the bushes. So what I like to do is grab a Q-tip. Now you can use either alcohol or I use Windex, doesn't really make much difference. Alcohol's a bit more aggressive, so it'll work better here. You basically want to remove all this gunk that's built itself up around where the contacts meet with this shaft. So I like to start with a Q-tip, then I'll just go over here, run it through, see how dirty it is. Run it through again, see how dirty it is then. And then once it's sort of relatively clean, I will put it to the side. I just like to grab a Q-tip, use a very little amount of Windex, just sort of go around the inside, just to pick up any debris that happens to have fallen in there. So it's a little bit dirty, a little bit of like surface rust, which is what you kind of get with those magnets. And then this one, very gently, I'll run around it just to remove some of that built up grease and grime. Okay. And then it should look something like that. Now, clean the outside a little bit. Alright. Okay, just quickly clean up the outside, and let's grab some grease. I use this kind of grease. It's worked well for me. Doesn't seem to have much problem with the engines, so I will keep using it. Just a little bit of dust. Okay, push that in. Now we'll push that in there, click it in. This part I can show you on camera because it's really easy. You can either use a flathead. I do quite like using this triangle one though. It's quite effective. Ignore the dog. Bit of annoying thing to be honest. And it should move relatively freely. Now I'm going to go grab a gear, so I'll be back in a minute. I don't know why I keep saying I'll be back in a minute. For you guys it's like a couple of seconds. Just so you sort of are aware of the cut. So the outside's a bit clean. Then I'll grab this. Now it should be a real tight fit. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to quickly grab that soldering iron. Grab this. Yeah, sort of. You don't actually need this to be reattached, so technically you don't even need it there at all, but I will reattach it today. Okay. That should do. Yep. Now I'll just snip off the excess. Again, you don't need it. Some engines don't even have this, so don't be too worried about it. It's not even attached properly. It's fine. I don't actually know what it does. I think it's just meant to smooth out the ride, but I've had it on, I've had it off. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Like I said, sometimes they have it there, sometimes they don't. Do not get bent over it. If it comes off, it'll come off. It typically breaks over time. So, that's not to say though that it's ever the cause of the problems. So just be aware of that. Give this a clean out. what you're dealing with here is a lot of old grease, and these engines especially like to pick up a lot of dirt, a lot of sandy material. Be aware of that when you're cleaning them. If you have a hydrosonic cleaner, it's probably make this a lot easier. Remove that too. The hydrosonic, can't remember. This is also where the alcohol comes in real handy. I don't have any on hand at the moment. That's partly because you've got to be really careful with the alcohol. It doesn't like paint very much, or the paint on these models are very susceptible to basically just disintegrating when they come into contact with alcohol, because it is a fairly aggressive cleaner. It won't melt your plastic, but it will damage your paint. I think it's because it's alcohol-based paint, so basically just melts away. Sorry about the sort of poor camera angles. It's very hard to get these to work, or get the camera angles to be nice, and also be able to actually get me to do some work. Okay, that's all done. So now let's put this back together. It's fine if it's a little bit wet in there. You don't want it to be like swimming in moisture, of course. So that goes in. And then you have this gear, which does actually come apart. It's weirdly one of the few gears in this entire thing that does come apart. Maybe, oh, is it just broken? Should it be coming apart? And the answer is yeah, it is actually meant to separate. I think it's meant to give you a degree of flexibility in the drivetrain, but it seems kind of pointless to me. So, with that, you want to get these as relatively clean as possible. Now, I always forget the way this is meant to go back in. So I'm going to put the inspection. That's good. This one is quite annoying to get in, so just be aware of that. Alright. Okay. So that's one gear. There aren't actually a ton of gears in this mechanism, so it's good. Honestly, the worst ones to work on are probably the Tomy toys. There's just so many Tomy trains, sorry, which was a separate brand for those unaware. They are such a huge hassle because there are so many moving components. That'll do. Okay. See, it's all sort of coming together. Next is this guy, I believe. The question that one might ask me while I'm doing this or a matter of semantics, I should say, is what I'm doing a restoration, a service, or a repair? Or is it a combination of a few of those? So typically, so a repair would be when I was fixing the item up, which I am doing. I am fixing it. However, the problems I'm fixing are very common problems. So at what point does it stop becoming a repair and just become a... There we go. Well, make sure that spring's in there. And make sure that's sitting right. I'm not convinced. You know what? Give me a minute. Alright, so I'll explain what I've just gone and done. So this is the current housing, alright? This is what the housing should look like. As you can see, this is a bit bent. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to really affect it too much. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's too much effort, so I'm just going to replace the housing at this stage. My reasoning being, it's easier to replace the housing now than it is once I've sold things in. Would it run, is the question, and I think the answer is yes. Would it run well? I think the answer there is a bit harder to ascertain. Let's check this is definitely the same housing. Because if you look, if I try to mate this to this, they are the same, but it's definitely off. Okay. Mate that to that, but before I do, don't forget your weight, and then you don't want to forget your lubricant. I don't like to flood it with too much lubricant, just enough to get it lubed up. That looks better. Cool. Now let's put this back together. That's the wrong screw. That's the right screw, but I'll explain why that's a bit wrong in a minute. Check that that's springing. Yep. Should all flow. Yep. All right. Now that what that leaves us with is a very minor repair. So, next step is this. Grab this, push it in. You want to make sure it's rubbing there. And you want to screw this in tight. This forgoes. Okay. Alright. This will forego having to rewire this. Although, in the case of this one, I think the thread's sort of gone, so we will actually have to sort of try to flood the solder here. Alright. Let's give this a shot. Move that switch out of the way. Okay. Let that dry a bit. That's good. Alright. Now, this is the hard part, because I, for the life of me, cannot remember. Give me 1 minute. The advantage of having spares, people. You can just go check another one. This is just to make sure the wires that I'm using are the correct ones. So, what I like to do to make my life easier is I'll grab the wire, I'll snip off the end. Okay. But I'll keep the full bundle attached. So there we have the wire. So I'll just snip that a little. You want to leave yourself enough working room. There we go. So the blue wire attaches to there. So we'll move that out of the way. We'll grab the blue wire. Now, I'm not going to profess to be great at soldering. I am not. What I will do is I'll sort of try to get that sort of relatively like soldered up. So that needs to go downward. So basically what we're going to try and do it's not good enough. Have a look. I'm still not quite happy with that. Quickly remove this, because something I think I just realized, and that is this what I was talking about when it comes to the old wires. See how that's sort of got another thing in there? That's the old wire. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to give this another shot by cutting off the end, because I can't use that because that's got too much fucking shit in it. Oop. There we go. I'm going to cut this again because I fucked that up. Okay, try again. There we go. That's clean. Sorry about that, but this is what I'm talking about when it comes to moving that wire. Otherwise, you can make it work. It's just, it's an utter pain. Alright, I'm happy with that. So, checking this, we want to sort of run it through there. Then you want to run it down here. There we go. And then that should run out the back. So that's done. That was a pain. Just going to quickly clean that up a little bit. Nah, that'll do. Alright. There we go. Cool, cool, cool. That's nice. Doesn't have to be perfect again, but you do want to. I do want to aim for at least looking decent. Then what I'll do is I'll cut off there. I'll cut off far too much wire, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show you in a minute. But it is kind of important you cut off too much wire. All right. Next up is red. So I do tend to, these wires come in a lot of colors, but I do tend to just try to stick to the red and the blue, just so it looks all tidy and original. Alright, so now we've got to get this sorted and move that out of the way. Okay, we're gonna come from this angle. Cool, cool, cool. Same deal, going to cut off far too much wire. Now, you may go, oh, we're going to solder it in. No, we're not. We're going to run that through where it needs to run through, which is there. And then you want to run it through there. Okay, then we're going to realize that we cut off not enough red, probably. Oof, that's not good. Actually, we should have plenty of wire. Okay, I don't know why the fuck he went down there. So then you want to run it through here. Okay. Trying not to cross the fucking wires. Alright. Then that'll come in over to here. Now, the next step may seem a bit confusing, but bear with me, because there's reasons. So, we grab the James body, and we want to now start putting this back together. So let's grab that. There also should be this weight in here. There should be a weight at sort of the front end, sort of there-ish. Actually going to give that a bit of a clean. Just give it a quick rub off just to get rid of some of that surface rust. Throw that in. Then that should just you sort of see why I don't list up a lot of these, because they take a long time to fix. That's why if I see a lot of tender endings, I tend to try to avoid it now, because it's just too much effort. Attached, attached, all attached. Motor goes in. Cool, cool, cool. You put in your 3 weights. Then you've got your wheel set. Make sure you lubricate this. Okay. They can only go in one way. Cool. Then we'll put in the base keeper, making sure we're not crushing any wires. Should slip in real nice and easy. Like that. Check that nothing's binding. And then we can start screwing it back together. Okay. Check it freewheels properly. Check it locks. Clean up and put the rods on. And then we can move on to the tender. Right. There we go. Alright. Now we have the tender part, which kind of sucks. So, you want to strip the end of both your wires. Basically, I might just cut... I seem to have cut a little bit too much of the blue. I don't need nearly that much. So I'll cut off about that. Then I'll strip both. There we go. Okay. Trim off there, a little bit more of that. Don't need that much wire. Okay. So then, we want to run that down there, that down there. Alright. Basically, I like to sort of go where they would have gone originally. I'll tend to run it down there a bit. Run it through here. And then sort of circle it back around to there. Okay. Just going to push this wire down. Attached, good. And this one is a little bit more annoying because you've got to attach it to such a small surface area. Okay, that fucked up. Alright, now what do you do if you fuck it up this badly? There's actually a very simple solution. And again, it comes down to actually rather interesting design. Oh, fuck. So, first things first, you want to remove that from that. Alright. This is why we cut off more. This piece is near impossible to solder to. So what do? Well, what you can do is desolder down here and get rid of it. Yeah, again, not actually required. There's a lot of little things that they put into these that aren't actually required for the engine to operate. They're just sort of there. Now, if you're an electrical engineer, you can probably tell me what they actually do. But at the scale we're working, the answer may as well be, ow, diddly squat. They don't do anything. Cut off some more of that. Okay, we're going to press down on this wire with this thing, and we're going to Grab a little bit more solder. Okay. Let's put it all back together, then we'll have the moment of truth. It's always a bit of a, will it work, please, sort of begging moment. Because I don't know how good my soldering skills are. You can sort of tell throughout this video I'm not that amazing at it. I'm competent enough to do this, but that is about it. Okay, that goes in like that. Yep, alright. Make sure I'm not cutting any wire there. Nope, should be alright. Okay. Moment of truth. And that's why I had to build up to that, and that's because when you service the engine, it's got to get used to the grease moving around in there, it's got to get used to a lot of components, so you can see, even now, it's getting faster and faster. And that's because it's slowly but surely building itself up to speed. Typically I'll run these in for a little bit till they seem to no longer want to sort of wind up, and then I will basically call them complete. And that was a pain. And you can tell it was a pain, and why I don't sell these often, because that took nearly an hour. Hell, with all the stuff, probably about an hour to run. Apparently this isn't a fresh battery. That's running really quite good. So, let's talk about some sort of finishing up moves. You want to, when you're done, my advice is get your soldering iron, unplug it. And place it in a well-ventilated area outside. Reasoning for that is just, I don't want anyone burning the houses down doing this. In fact, with the soldering, it's probably easier to do it outside or a well-ventilated area, so be aware of that. But please be careful. I'm not a professional, I can do this, but just be careful is the biggest advice I can ever give. As for this component here, I'm probably just going to throw that in the bin. There's no point trying to save it because it'll never be as good as it should be. So that is a James saved from scrap if you want. Works well. Again, assuming this isn't a fresh battery or anything, so do I have any other batteries to see if it goes a bit faster or a bit slower? I do. Let's have a look. I mean, that's not bad. These tend to have not the best turn, not the worst turn, just a quick turn of speed with a fair bit of torque. So, that's job done. Battery cover can go back on. And that's how you repair a James. As you can tell from that whole experience, it's rather painful. What you want to make sure is when you've finished that there's still a wide degree of movement here. You want to be able to sort of bend it, move it, nothing will snap. Hence why I actually kept so much wire in the tender. If this snaps, there is actually a fair bit of like pull still, so it hopefully shouldn't just snap. Freewheeling is very important. You want to make sure an engine freewheels properly. Doesn't freewheel this well though. This is a Percy that I'm waiting on a gear set for. That'll be up once that's finished. But yeah, so this guy is pretty much good to go. The only thing he's missing is These. That was a terrible transition. I'm sorry. That is his cattle car. This one's a bit damaged, but again, the James is not perfect. Pair well. And his black caboose thing. Again, needs a bit of a clean, otherwise it's alright. So, let's talk brass tacks. How much would a set like this go for? And I think in the current climate in Australia, I mean, we can sit here and argue this all day. What are Tomys really worth? And that's really a very difficult question to answer because it really depends on who you ask and what they know. So, I think someone like Rainer could probably sell a set like this for around the $50, $60 mark. Thomas James Strange probably closer to 50. But then again, they don't typically sell with the full set. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. It's very much a mixed bag. James is one of the more basic characters. A set like this is something I'd price around the $40 range. So, once you take into account the price it cost me to get this, I don't know how much I paid. I think I might have got this in a bundle of broken ones for maybe $5 a piece. Probably a bit less. The rolling stock, I don't tend to count it in any purchase price I ever make. So, let's just say the rolling stock's $1 for both. As in, that's how much it probably cost me. So let's say this all up, before we get into anything else, is about $7. Then we tack on the parts cost. Traction tires, lubricant, gear, wires. Let's say we can tack on probably about another $3 worth of just generic consumables. Just to go back to that, is it repair, is it service, is it whatever? Service for me was a lot of what we did there. New traction tires, that's a service thing. That gear inside where the engine connects, where the motor connects to the rest of the gear train, that's a consumable to me. It's always better to replace it because it's always old. I mean, this item, you gotta remember, this is, how old is it this year? 18 years old? This is 18 years old. So needless to say, it needs replacement parts like that. Those are what I consider consumables. Just sitting right? Sorry, I just realized, is that sitting? Yeah, that's just, yeah. I use slightly stiffer wire, so that's a little bit. But, so let's say that's $10. Like, we throw in some of the non-consumables. I mean, the wires aren't typically consumables. But let's say $10 all up. Okay. This took about an hour of my time. So, if we assume $40 to $50, let's assume $40 dollars. That means that the amount I get for this item, after fees and whatnot, is $25. So it took me an hour, so I'm working at about $25 an hour. That is less than my job pays me. And for some items it's better, for some it's worse. I mean, a Murdoch, obviously, that's an item that, again, you could probably pick up for the $10 mark. And it's an item that, once repaired, is worth more like $75 to $100 in the Australian market, to be clear. Even then, like America, it's very expensive. That's something that only takes me maybe half an hour. It's a simpler mechanism. And depending on the damage, it's not that hard to repair. So something like that, after fees, I'm looking at more about $120 an hour. But you have it so that not very many people are coming in wanting to buy a Murdoch every day. Your more basic characters, James, your Percys, they're more the bread and butter. I just struggle to keep any of these guys down. I'll probably do a Henry soon, and I'll list up both this and the Henry, and I think they'll be gone within a week or two. You make it really, but yeah, because there just aren't that many on the market anymore. And it's something I've noticed over the last year. People want them. People really do want them. But on eBay, at least, you are extremely limited as to your options. Because the poorer ones are getting to the point where they're just basically thrown away. A lot of lots should have more characters in them, but I think people just toss them. So you've got a population pool that's getting smaller. And even characters like Percy, I was selling Percy's at $25 just for the base Percy. I don't think I can keep doing that. Because everyone else is moving well and truly to the $30 to the $40 mark. And it is kind of absurd. I mean, Toby's sort of doing that as well. Toby you can still buy, yet he's moving to the more $40 mark with Henrietta. Thomas is hard to say. I have a few up for 25. The last one I think I sold for 15. Mine are all not the best. Better examples I sell for more. Worst examples, not really. Thomas is definitely one of the characters that even still, he's going up, but I don't think the demand is quite there. Although when someone really wants them, they'll buy him. Henry's moving up as well. Gordon and Edward are on a shelf, and there's a reason for that. The brittleness of the plastic, namely, that causes them to be so expensive. I would definitely say James is the most common. Lots-wise, you see him a lot, but he is typically thrashed because he's one of the first things kids get. Got to remember, when kids get sets, they're going to get either a big set for Christmas or a smaller starter set for birthday. James occupies the big set. He was in the big like a massive Thomas, the set with the massive Thomas. I can't remember what it's called. I mean, Duck was as well. Duck's all over the place. He's a bit more durable though, and at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Finally, is durability. Something like a Percy is going to be less likely to get thrown out and be far more durable than, say, a James. But I struggle with these so much because they take up so much of my time for relatively so little reward. And I'll do it even if I didn't get that much of a reward. But it limits to how many I can actually get through in a day. And with my time being as limited as it is, it just doesn't happen. So I'm not going to be doing a ton of videos filming them because this is a bit more of a hassle, and I typically throw something in on the background and I sort of get through it that way. But either way, thanks everyone for watching this bit of a long video. This will be up on eBay soon. I'll probably price it 40. I might check. The market may have even gone up more since last time, or gone down, so it might be more or less. Thank you all for watching. Bye for now.